Welcome to Grief is the New Normal. I'm Dr. Heather Taylor, a licensed psychologist and grief specialist, here to help change the conversation about grief and build community and connection while we all adjust to this new normal we are living in. This podcast is for you if you are grieving or if you are supporting someone in a season of grief. I'm glad you're here. Hey friends, welcome back to Grief is the New Normal. I'm Dr. Heather Taylor, and today we are making space for the ones who brace themselves every June, for the ones who scroll past Father's Day ads and feel that pit in their stomach, for the ones who've lost their dad, for the ones who are a dad and have lost a child, for the ones carrying complicated grief tied to fatherhood in all its forms. So if this is a day you'd rather skip, a day that brings up a lump in your throat and a weight in your chest, you are not alone. And this one's for you. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the grief no one wants to talk about. The kind of grief that sits quietly in the back of your throat while the world shouts, Happy Father's Day. The kind of grief that doesn't show up in Hallmark cards. The kind of grief that makes this weekend feel like emotional landmines. Grief for the dad you lost or the child you're missing. You might feel sad and tender. You might feel numb and disconnected, maybe angry at the world for celebrating what's been taken from you, and maybe tired of pretending that you're okay. That is grief, real, sacred grief. And if Father's Day feels anything but joyful for you, that makes sense. Story time with Heather. So I work with a number of clients who've lost a father or a father figure, or who also lost a child. And so this weekend can feel really complicated, right? There's a lot of pressure around Mother's Day and how that feels for some people who have either lost their mom or have struggled in their own journey around motherhood with miscarriage and infertility. And Father's Day has similar and same griefy feelings. And yet there tends to be this heightened pressure on Mother's Day. And sometimes Father's Day can be this forgotten holiday. It's almost there's less priority or less weight put on Father's Day grief, which is just as real and valid as Mother's Day grief. And they're different, right? There can be just as much space and pressure and pain felt on this day for dads who've lost a child, for people who've lost their father or father figure. I want to make sure we're making space for that. I'm a millennial. Most of us grew up watching Grey's Anatomy, and Christina Yang in one of those episodes talks about joining the Dead Dad Club when George loses his dad, and she talks about it. And I think that's such a normalizing, validating statement. And so we're going to talk about that a bit. So let's name it. When you lose your dad, you join a club no one wants to be in. It's the club where you dread the lead up to Father's Day for weeks. You mute ads and social media just to protect your peace. You feel weirdly invisible, like the world forgot that your dad is gone. If your dad was someone you loved deeply, this day can feel really gutting, this build up to the barbecues, to the tool things, to the fishing, to whatever those hobbies and interests that dads can have. If he was your safe space, your grounding point, your person, you might be navigating a lot of longing and sadness this weekend, and it can feel really overwhelming and hard to breathe. On the other end of things, like if your dad was someone who hurt you or who was emotionally unavailable or absent, your grief might be more complicated. You may be grieving what you never got to have, the dad you needed and didn't get. Both are valid and both deserve space. And then for dads who are grieving a child, there's this other layer of grief around Father's Day. And we don't talk about this enough. It's the pain of being a father who's lost a child, whether it was a pregnancy loss, infant loss, or the death of an older child. Your grief is very real, very valid, and it can have rituals and have rituals begin this day. And sometimes people forget to ask dads, how are they doing having lost a child? Because sometimes there can be more emphasis on the parent who carried the child and birthed the child. Even if no one asks how you're doing, even if the world doesn't have rituals or language for dads who grieve, you may feel isolated and unsure of where to put your pain. You may feel pressured to be the strong one. You might feel disconnected from the celebration of Father's Day. And you might feel angry that fatherhood can feel invisible, that grief can feel invisible sometimes. We're going to name the things. You are still a father. You carried hopes and dreams and love, and now you're carrying grief, and your grief deserves to be acknowledged.
Yeah. I think this is a great reminder to talk about the spectrum of grief and how sometimes sometimes the father figure can be more of that
Instrumental type grieving where there's more stoicism and a deep internal experience. There's not maybe as much emotional expression or verbal processing. The pain and the feelings are all still very real, very deep, but it's not as external. Sometimes that can get forgotten when our internal experience is louder and bigger. And so it's important to remember those fathers lost a child too, and to acknowledge that grief space. Additionally, we talked about this last week, the doing type of grieving where there's more action and project. It's not as much the talking. How do we invite project-based grieving together, the doing things together, the parallel space where, you know, we're not alone, we're doing something together. And that's a way we can show up and support our grieving fathers. If you're someone who is grieving a father figure, what are rituals or traditions you want to maintain that feel like they're still honoring your dad or father figure or bonus dad, grandfather figure who was maybe instrumental in helping raise you, and you're wanting to honor who they were even though they're not physically here anymore?
Let's talk about when the emotions don't make sense, right? Father's Day can stir up all kinds of conflicting feelings, especially
If you're grieving multiple things at once. Maybe you're grieving your dad and a child. Maybe you're grieving as a step parent, foster parent, or father figure. Maybe you're grieving estrangement or absence. You're feeling both deep love and deep sorrow. You're holding that both and, right? So you might be wondering, am I allowed to feel all this at once? And yes, absolutely you are. Grief is layered and complicated, and Father's Day doesn't simplify it, it can magnify it. So, if this day feels loud, painful, or hollow, you're not broken, you're human, and you're grieving. So let's talk about a plan. I love a plan. I love coping ahead plans. I love aftercare plans. I love the day of plans. I think being intentional in how we show up to support ourselves is really essential when we're grieving. A couple quick reminders. You do not have to perform for this day. You get to decide what you need.
So, here are a few things to think about to take care of yourself for this coming weekend. Number one, let's name what you're feeling.
Say it out loud, journal it, text a friend, acknowledge what's coming up, acknowledge the tricky feelings you feel around this weekend. Number two, setting boundaries. Boundaries are our friends. Say no to the things that drain you. Mute your social media feed if you need to. Skip the brunch. Figure out how to make it small. Set your boundaries around what your capacity is. Or if you're committing to something, send a little let yourself off the hook text. I feel like I might have capacity for this, but I also don't know. I might cancel last minute, and that gets to be okay. Number three, do something meaningful just for you. This can be lighting a candle. This can be visiting a special place. Like maybe you went fishing in a certain spot or you went hiking here, and that was a really powerful or important memory. So visiting those special places. Maybe you want to write a letter or write a card or write a haiku, writing something to represent how you feel about your father or the child that you lost. Maybe you want to spend some time in nature, but doing something meaningful that feels in alignment with the capacity that you have and that honors the person that you're thinking about this. Number four, let yourself feel. Grief can show up in a number of different ways. There's not one right way it's going to show up. There's not a prescriptive way it's going to show up. Grief may show up in tears, in silence, in anger, or even in disconnection. And all of it counts. All of it's okay. It's going to look different year to year. So we get to be curious and flexible about how our grief is going to show up. Now, number five, ask for what you need, whether that's space, whether that's company, whether that's someone to say your person's name to. Your needs matter, and that gets to be okay, however that shows up. So maybe you've planned a barbecue and you are only going to invite a couple people that it's okay to be messy around with your grief, or it's okay to be quiet, or they don't have high expectations. It's okay to set yourself up to be successful this weekend and limit how much you're committing to or planning to do. So, as we start to wrap up this quick little episode, wherever your grief lands for this Father's Day, remember that you're allowed to grieve. You're allowed to be angry, sad, confused, or even totally checked out. You're allowed to skip the performative nature of these holidays, and you can choose just to be present. You can move slow with intentionality. So here's your gentle invitation. Name your grief. Let your heart take up space. Feel those feelings, even if they're uncomfortable, even if we don't know what to do with them. We can ask for help in how we metabolize those feelings out this weekend, and say their name: the dad you lost, the child that you're missing, the version of fatherhood that never got to be. You are not alone. Not on this day, not ever.
And if this episode speaks to you, share it there. There's so many out there walking with silent grief, and your story might help them feel seen. So let's let Father's Day take up some space.
Remember to be kind to yourselves, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
That's it for today's episode of Grief is the New Normal. If this conversation resonated with you, or you think it might benefit someone else, please share it. Sharing can open doors to healing, understanding, and normalizing these griefy conversations. If you're craving deeper insights or ongoing support, consider signing up for the Grief Gap newsletter. It's packed with resources, tips, and personal stories to help you navigate your grief journey. Visit the website www.griefisthenewnormal.com to subscribe. For those who prefer a more personal touch to their healing process, check out my grief journal, Authentically Unapologetic. It's designed to help you explore your grief on your own terms, with prompts and exercises that encourage reflection and growth. I'm Dr. Heather Taylor, and I look forward to our next meaningful conversation. If you're interested in sharing your story, collaborating, or learning more, please email me at hello@griefisthenewnormal.com. You can also stream the episodes on YouTube for more engaging content. Until next time, keep exploring your grief with intention and support, remembering you don't have to do this alone.